The war had lasted for decades. It began long before most could remember, stretching across star systems, consuming entire planets, and turning once thriving civilizations into ruins. No one really knew who started it anymore, only that it had to end. Now, at last, peace was within reach. A massive armada floated in the cold silence of space near the neutral planet Erithos. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species filled the void, their lights blinking like stars against the black. This wasn't a battle fleet, it was a gathering of diplomats, generals, and leaders from every corner of the galaxy. They were here to sign a treaty. One final agreement that would stop the war once and for all. The Varelian Coalition, a powerful alliance of alien nations, stood ready to put an end to the fighting. They had spent years pushing back the enemy, gaining ground inch by inch. Their forces were tired, but they had won more than enough victories to demand peace. Opposite them sat the Corvex Dominion, once a mighty empire built on conquest and fear. Now they were broken. Their fleets were shattered, their colonies lost, and their people starving. Even the Corvex knew they couldn't win anymore. So they came to the table, not as conquerors but as survivors. It was supposed to be a simple meeting, a few speeches, some signatures, and then, finally, silence where there had only been war, but not everyone believed it would go that easily. Inside the command deck of the Varelian flagship Starbound, Admiral Tauric Vale stared out at the gathered ships. His kind were tall and thin, with pale skin and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He wore a dark uniform with golden trim, the mark of his rank. Around him, officers moved quietly, monitoring sensors and relaying messages between ships. Everyone was tense. Even if the war was ending, no one trusted the Corvex. "Admiral," said Commander Lyra Sen, stepping forward. She was younger, her face covered in soft green scales, marking her as a member of the Threxian race. "Final preparations are complete. The summit begins in 2 hours." Tauric nodded. "And security?" "Tight," Lyra replied. "We've, scanned every ship 3 times. No weapons hidden, no surprise guests, at least none we know about." He gave a dry chuckle. "There's always something we miss." She didn't laugh. "With respect, sir, this is too important. If anything goes wrong, the war starts again. Maybe worse." Tauric looked at her, then back out the window. "I know. That's why I'm watching." Behind them, the view screen showed the planet Erithus, a blue-green world with white clouds swirling over its surface. It had been chosen for this summit because it belonged to no one. Neutral ground, untouched by war. For now, across the system, other leaders prepared for the talks. On a floating city ship belonging to the Zenari, Chancellor Morokai reviewed the final terms of the treaty with her advisors. Her people were insect-like, with chitinous shells and many limbs. They spoke in clicks and hums, but translated through machines so others could understand. "The Corvex will agree," Morokai said, her voice low and calm. "They have no choice," one of her aides shifted nervously. "What if they try something? What if this is a trick?" She turned, her large compound eyes toward him. "Then we are ready." On another ship, deep inside Corvex territory, Supreme Warlord Drezek, the Unbroken, stood alone in his throne room. He was massive, his armor covered in scars from past battles. His people were known for their strength, their cruelty, their hunger for power, but now he was silent. His empire was gone. His armies crushed. His people begged for food while the Varelians held what little remained. He had no love for peace. But he understood survival. "I will go," Drezek said at last, his voice like thunder. "I will speak, I will sign, but I will not forget." Outside, the Corvex fleet hovered in orbit, waiting. Not all of them agreed with the peace. Some whispered of betrayal, of revenge, but for now they obeyed. Back aboard the Starbound, Tauric Vale stood beside a group of diplomats preparing to land on Erithos. Among them was Senator Kalen Dor, a human representative from Earth. Humans were new to the galactic stage. They had only joined the wider universe a few years ago after discovering faster-than-light travel. Compared to the ancient races of the galaxy, they were still children, but they were fast learners. Kalen was tall, with short brown hair and a calm expression. He wore a simple gray suit, unlike the flashy uniforms of the alien politicians around. You nervous?" asked the Threxian diplomat beside him. Kalen smiled. "Should I be?" The Threxian chuckled. "Depends. You humans don't usually get invited to these kinds of meetings." "No," Kalen agreed. "But we're here now." He glanced out the window. Below, the surface of Erithos shimmered under the light of its sun. Peace was close. Too close to let slip away. Hours passed. Ships descended to the planet. Leaders met in a grand hall built for the occasion, a place where enemies could sit together without weapons. Without armies, the first speeches were made, promises of unity. Words of regret. Then came the signing. Pens hovered above glowing screens. Fingers pressed down. The treaty was done. Gasps, applause, relief. The war was over, or so they thought. As the leaders celebrated, a faint signal appeared at the edge of the system, small, weak, barely noticeable. It came from nowhere. Sensors struggled to track it. It wasn't Corvex, not Varelian, not any known race. Then, without warning, it jumped, a burst of light. A ripple in space. And suddenly, something arrived, something huge. From the darkness beyond the system, a ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. It was unlike anything seen before, massive, black, sleek. Its hull gleamed with a strange metal that reflected no light. Dozens of cannons lined its sides. Fighters rested in hangars along its spine. No markings. No identification. Just one name etched into the side in bold letters. Indomitable on the starburn. Alarms blared. Unknown vessel, shouted a sensor officer. Massive energy signature. Talric Vale rushed to the screen. "Where did that come from?" "It just appeared," said Lyra. "No warp trail, no signal, nothing." The alien fleet scrambled. Ships rotated their weapons. Fighters launched. Orders flew through comms channels. "Identify yourself," Talric ordered through open channels. A pause. Then, a voice, calm, confident, greater than, "This is Commander Elias Ward of the United Nations Space Command. We request immediate access to the summit." Silence followed. "What?" someone muttered. "Who the hell is the UNS?" asked another on the bridge. Talric narrowed his eyes. "Earth has no military fleet, not officially." Lyra looked worried. "Maybe they do now." Down on Erithos, Kalen Dor watched the sky darken as the unknown ship approached. He didn't seem surprised. Instead, he whispered to himself, "They're early." Above the planet, the Indomitable hovered silently, watching. Waiting. The war was over, but humanity had just begun. The alien armada circled Erithos like a storm waiting to break. Hundreds of ships, some sleek, some jagged, all-powerful, turned their weapons toward the new arrival. Lights blinked across control panels. Fighters launched from carriers. Orders flew through comms channels. But no one fired. Not yet. Because the ship that had just dropped out of FTL was unlike anything they'd ever seen. It hung in space like a shadow given form. Black armor, angular design, massive engines glowing faintly at its rear. Its hull reflected no light, no banners marked it. No colors, just a name etched into the side. Un's Indomitable Admiral Talric Vale stared at the viewscreen aboard the starburn, his sharp eyes narrowing. "Run scans again," he ordered. "Who built this thing?" A Threxian officer tapped furiously at her console. "Unknown origin, human registry detected, but this isn't listed in any database." Talric turned to Kalen Dor, the human diplomat still on board. "You knew about this?" Kalen stood calmly near the command deck's railing, watching the screen with quiet interest. He gave a small shrug. "I knew something was coming," he admitted. "I didn't know when." Lyra Sen, the Threxian commander, stepped forward. "This is impossible. Earth has no military fleet." "Not officially," Kalen smiled slightly. "Maybe we do now." On the planet below, the summit had stopped. The leaders who had just signed the peace treaty were now staring up at the sky, confused and worried. Some whispered, Others demanded answers, and above them all, the Indomitable floated silently. Then, a voice came over every open channel. "This is Commander Elias Ward of the United Nations Space Command. We request immediate access to the summit." The voice was calm, confident. Measured. Silence followed. Across the system, confusion spread. "What is the UNS?" asked one Zenari official. "No such organization exists in our records," replied another. "They're lying," muttered a Corvex general. "No human ship should be this big." Back aboard the Starbound, Admiral Vale looked at Kalen again. "You need to tell me what's going on," he said. Al inside. "We've been working on this for years. Quietly, humanity wanted to stay out of the war. But we also knew peace wouldn't last unless someone made sure of it." Vale frowned. "So you built a battleship? Alone? In secret?" Kalen nodded. "We learned things, found old tech, built new things, and now we're here." Vale didn't look happy. "And if we say no? If we tell you to turn back?" Kellen's smile faded. "Then we'll wait. Peace is important. We don't want to ruin it." "But?" Lyra asked. He met her gaze. "But if anyone tries to use this moment to restart the war, we won't let that happen either." Above the planet, the Indomitable remained silent, waiting, a different kind of diplomacy down on Erithos. Supreme Warlord Drezek, the Unbroken, watched the skies with cold eyes. His people had suffered, their empire crushed, their pride broken. Now they were forced to sit beside their enemies and pretend peace was real. And now, humans. They hadn't fought in the war, they hadn't bled, they hadn't earned their place, yet here they were. Drezek clenched his fists inside his heavy armor. "This is an insult," he growled. "They think they can come here and act like equals?" Nearby, his most trusted advisor, General Rethkai, leaned close. "We must be careful, my lord. That ship. It could destroy half the fleet before we even fired." Drezek's eyes narrowed. "Then we test them." He turned sharply and stormed out of the summit hall, his guards following. Minutes later, a message was sent across the system. Greater than the Corvex Dominion does not recognize this so-called unsky. If these humans wish to prove themselves, let them do so in battle. Across the Armada, alarms blared again. A formation of Corvex warships broke off from the main group. Fighters launched. Energy shields powered up. War was coming. Again, first contact. With fire, the Indomitable did not move. Its sensors tracked the incoming enemy forces. Calculated trajectories. Estimated firepower. Commander Elias Ward sat in the center of the bridge, hands folded behind his back. He was older than most officers, his face lined with experience. His uniform was simple, no medals, no flashy rank. Insignia, just a man in charge. Around him, the crew waited. "Sir," said the tactical officer, "we have multiple hostiles breaking formation. Corvex vessels, weapons hot." Ward didn't flinch. "Shields up," he said calmly. "Prepare point defense systems. No return fire unless I order it." "Aye, sir." Outside, the Corvex fighters approached fast. They were small, fast, deadly, designed for hit-and-run strikes. Behind them, two capital ships took position, ready to unleash hell. But then a flash, a ripple in space. The first fighter exploded before it even got close, and then another dot and another dot from the Indomitable. Thin beams of energy lanced out. Silent, precise, one shot. One kill, point defense lasers. The rest of the fighters scattered. One Corvex captain tried to break off. Too late. A railgun round, invisible until it struck, tore through his cockpit. The ship spun out of control and vanished in a ball of fire. Gasps echoed across the galactic fleet. The Indomitable hadn't moved, hadn't raised its weapons. Yet it had taken down 4 enemy fighters and a capital ship in under 10 seconds. And it wasn't done. From the massive hangar bay of the Indomitable, sleek black fighters launched. They looked like arrows, fast and deadly. Human pilots. They dove straight into the remaining Corvex formation like wolves into a flock. Lasers lit up the dark. Missiles streaked across space. In less than a minute, the fight was over. The last Corvex fighter exploded. The second capital ship limped away. Engine smoking. Silence returned. And then once more, Commander Ward's voice rang out, greater than, "This is Commander Elias Ward of the United Nations Space Command. You tested us. You failed." The message repeated across every channel, across every ship, across every species. The humans had arrived, and they weren't asking for permission. Back aboard the Starbound, Admiral Vale watched everything unfold in stunned silence. Next to him, Lyra Sen whispered, That wasn't just defense. That was a message." Vale nodded slowly. "Yes, they showed restraint. Precision, power." Kalen Dorr stood beside them, arms crossed. "They didn't start this fight," he sighed. "But they finished it." Lyra looked at him. "How much more do you have?" Kalen smiled faintly. "More than you'd expect." On the planet below, the summit was in chaos. Some leaders cheered. Some argued. Some demanded explanations. Others feared what had just happened. Chancellor Morokai of the Zenari clicked softly as she spoke to her aides. "The humans are not what we thought," she said. "They hid their strength? Why?" her aide responded nervously. "Perhaps they wanted to protect themselves. Or perhaps they wanted to surprise us." Morokai's many eyes glowed. "Either way, they are players now?" Meanwhile, Drezek the Unbroken stared at the sky, rage burning in his chest. He had underestimated them badly, but he would not make that mistake again. A new player on the board. Hours passed. The fighting stopped. The summit resumed, though now with a very different atmosphere. The Indomitable hovered above Aerithos, silent but present, and finally, after much debate, the leaders agreed. The humans would be allowed to speak. At the Grand Hall, Kalen Dorr stood beside Commander Ward as they entered. Ward was tall, broad-shouldered, with gray hair and sharp eyes. He wore a simple black uniform with a silver badge shaped like a globe surrounded by stars. He walked with confidence, not arrogance, control. As they stepped onto the stage, the room fell silent. Every leader in the galaxy watched them. Ward looked out at the crowd. Then he began to speak. "Greater than, we are not here to take sides. We are not here to conquer. We are here because peace is fragile, and because sometimes peace needs protection." He paused. "We watched your war for years. We saw the suffering, we saw the lies, and we decided enough." Murmurs spread. Ward continued. "Greater than, humanity has grown. We have learned, we have built, and now we offer our strength to ensure this peace lasts." He looked directly at Drezek. "Greater than, to those who would try to break it, we will not allow it." Silence. Then applause. Some clapped out of respect, some out of fear. But all understood. The war was over, but the galaxy had changed, and humanity was no longer just a footnote in history. They were now part of the future. The peace summit had barely ended when the sky above Aerithos turned dark again. No one expected it. Not the Varelians, not the Corvex, not even the humans, but as the leaders returned to their ships, eager to begin a new era of peace, the war came back with a vengeance. Without warning, a massive fleet dropped out of FTL just beyond the orbit of ERYTHOS. Hundreds of ships. Black holes, jagged wings. No flags. No names. Just death. It was the Corvex remnant fleet, a hidden force that had not been accounted for in any scans or intelligence reports. They had waited. Watched. And now they struck. A wave of enemy fighters launched first, screaming toward the surface like fire falling from the sky. Behind them, capital ships opened fire. Explosions lit up the space around. Aerithos' shields flared across the diplomatic armada. Chaos erupted. Back aboard the Starbound, Admiral Talric Vale shouted orders. "Raise shields! Launch fighters! Warn the planet!" Across the system, panic spread. Ships scrambled into formation. Lasers flashed. Missiles roared through the void, but they were caught off guard. Too slow. Too late. One by one, diplomatic vessels exploded on the ground. People ran. Leaders fled the summit hall as alarms blared. Then from the upper atmosphere, a voice cut through every channel. "This is Commander Elias Ward of the United Nations Space Command. You will stand down or be destroyed." Silence followed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the Indomitable moved, like a shadow rising from the dark. It broke away from its orbit and dove straight into the battle, its weapons powered up. And then it fired. The hammer falls. The Indomitable didn't hesitate. Its railgun batteries roared to life, sending slugs of metal at near-light speed. The first shot struck a Corvex destroyer head-on. The explosion was instant. A flash, a shockwave. Then nothing but debris. The second round hit a command frigate. Its bridge shattered. Its engines went dark. It tumbled lifelessly into space. The third took out an entire fighter wing before they could even reach the planet. And still, the Indomitable kept moving from its massive hangar bay. Sleek black fighters launched like arrows. Each one carried 2 human pilots trained. Disciplined, ready, they dove into the chaos like wolves into a battlefield. Lasers lit up the dark. Missiles streaked across the sky. In less than a minute, 10 Corvex fighters were gone. 5 more fell in the next 30 seconds. And then, the Indomitable as secondary. Weapon systems joined the fight. Twin laser cannons tracked targets with perfect precision. One beam after another lanced out, cutting through enemy hulls like knives through paper. A Corvex carrier tried to retreat, too late. A fusion torpedo slammed into its engine core. The explosion tore it apart, sending flaming wreckage flying in. All directions, across the system, stunned alien commanders watched the battle unfold. This can't be real, muttered Lyra Sen aboard the Starboard. Admiral Vale didn't respond. He was too busy watching the screen. Human fighters weaved between enemy formations like ghosts. They didn't fly in wild loops or flashy maneuvers. They flew with purpose. Precision. Discipline. Fearless. And behind them, the Indomitable remained steady, unshaken, unstoppable. Commander Ward stood on the bridge, calm as ever. Target there. Command ship, he ordered. End this. Aye, sir. The main gun charged. A deep hum filled the air. Done. Boom! The blast lit up half the sky. The Corvex flagship vanished in a cloud of fire. And just like that, the tide turned. A new kind of war the remaining. Corvex forces faltered, their fighters scattered, their ships tried to flee, but the Indomitable wasn't done yet. Lock targeting systems on their jump drive, said Ward. We're not letting them escape. Understood. More missiles launched. More explosions filled the void, one by one. The enemy ships lost their ability to flee. Trapped. Cornered. Outgunned. And then something unexpected happened. Across the comms channels, voices began to break through. Not Corvex, alien allies. Is this your plan? Asked a Zanari commander. No, replied Kalen Dor, who had returned to the Starboard. This is just what happens when you attack us. Another voice spoke. This isn't a battle, said a Threxian general. It's a massacre. Kalen looked at the screen. He nodded slowly. Yes, that's the point. Outside, the last of the Corvex ships surrendered. Some raised white flags. Others simply shut down their weapons. And finally, the silence returned. Space was littered with wreckage, but the Indomitable stood untouched. Unmoved. Watching. As if to say, greater than. This is what happens when you break the peace. #Dramath back. Aboard the Starboard, Admiral Vale stared at the view screen in disbelief. What just happened? He asked quietly. Lyra Sen shook her head. We were losing, completely, and then humanity showed up and changed everything. Vale exhaled. They didn't just save us. They reminded us what war really looks like. Kalen Dor stepped forward. You thought this war was about politics, about power. But war is about who wins, and today the humans won. Lyra frowned. You knew this would happen, didn't you? Kalen smiled faintly. I hoped it wouldn't, but I always knew we're ready. Vale looked at him for a long time. Then he turned to his officers. Get me Chancellor Morokai. We need to talk. Down on Arythos, the survivors gathered, leaders who had almost died. Diplomats who had nearly been killed. They looked up at the sky, where the Indomitable floated like a guardian. Silent. Watchful. Powerful. And then someone spoke. They didn't start this war, another added, but they finished it. A third whispered, what else do they have waiting? No one answered. Because no one knew. A message heard across the galaxy hours passed. The damaged ships were repaired. The wounded were treated. The dead were mourned. But the message was clear. Peace was not guaranteed. It had to be protected. And now, there was a new force in the galaxy willing to do just that. The Indomitable hovered above Arythos, silent once. More. Inside its command center, Commander Elias Ward sat alone. Looking out at the stars, behind him, his crew worked quietly. Finally, he spoke. Send a message to every known system. Aye, sir. Ward leaned back, greater than tell them this. The war is over. Peace has a new protector, and anyone who tries to take it away again will answer to us. The message was sent across the galaxy. To every species. Every empire. Every warlord. And somewhere, in the darkness of space, a single line echoed through. The galaxy had seen many things, wars that lasted centuries, empires that rose and fell like tides, technologies that changed the stars, but nothing had prepared them for this. Humanity. Not as diplomats. Not as traders, but as warriors. And now, as rulers of peace after the battle above Arythos, the galaxy was quiet again. Not out of calm, but out of fear. Fear of what had just happened, fear of what it meant, because humanity hadn't just won a fight, they had sent a message, one that echoed across every system, every species, every warlord who might think of breaking the fragile peace. ***, we are here, and we will not let you destroy what we have built. ***, now. The leaders of the galaxy were forced to ask themselves one question. Who are these humans? Secret history back on Earth, in the heart of the United Nations Space Command headquarters. A man sat alone in a dark room filled with maps, screens, and old records. His name was Director Marcus Halle. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a politician. He was the man who had started it all. On the screen in front of him, he watched footage from the battle above Arythos. Ships burning, fighters diving through fire. The Indomitable, silent and unstoppable. He didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He only nodded. Because he had known this day would come. For years, Earth had stayed quiet while the rest of the galaxy burned in war. They had watched, learned, waited, but they hadn't been idle. Long before humanity had even met another species, they had made a discovery, a secret buried beneath the ice of Antarctica. A ship unlike any other. It had crashed thousands of years ago, lost to time. Its builders long gone. But its tech remained. Advanced. Deadly. Powerful beyond imagination. And humanity took it. Not just the ship. Everything inside it. Engines, weapons, armor, AI systems. They studied it, broke it down, rebuilt it, and then they improved it. In secret, while the rest of the galaxy fought over borders and pride. Earth built something different. A fleet, a military, a shield between peace and chaos, and when the time came, they stepped forward. Not to rule, but to protect. The truth comes out back aboard the Starbound. Admiral Talric Vale sat with his top officers. They had gathered in a secure chamber, far from prying eyes. Across the table, representatives from the Zenari, Phyrexian, and other major powers waited. Kelen door. The human diplomat stood calmly at the center. Vale looked at him. You knew, he said. About the tech, about the ships, about everything. Kalen didn't deny it. We did, he admitted. We've known for years. Lyra Sen, the Phyrexian commander, leaned forward. Then why hide it? Why not help us sooner? Kalen gave her a steady look. Because we wanted peace. He sighed. Not war, she frowned. That doesn't make sense. It does, Vale interrupted. They didn't want to take sides. They wanted to stop the fighting without becoming part of it. Kalen nodded. Exactly. We didn't build weapons to fight. We built them to prevent more bloodshed. Another leader spoke up, a tall, insect-like Zenari official. But now you've shown your hand, she said. You've proven your power. What happens next? Kalen smiled slightly. That's up to all of us. Silence followed, then, finally, Vale asked the question everyone was thinking. How much more do you have? Kalen looked him in the eye. More than you can imagine. Word spread quickly. Hashtag across the galaxy. From the icy colonies of the Outer Rim to the golden towers of core worlds. Earth was no longer just a minor species. They were players now. Some feared them. Others respected them. Few still hated them, but none could ignore them on the planet Erithus. The leaders of the galaxy held another summit. This time, not to end a war, but to shape the future. Commander Elias Ward stood beside Kalen. As they entered the grand hall, every eye turned toward them. Ward walked with calm confidence. His uniform was simple, his expression unreadable. Behind him, holographic displays showed images from the battle. Ships burning, a new era begins. Weapons firing, humans flying into the storm like ghosts. Ward looked around at the assembled leaders, then he began to speak. Greater than peace is not given. It is earned, protected, enforced. He paused. We watched your war for years. We saw the destruction, the suffering, the lies, and we decided enough. Murmurs spread. Ward continued. Greater than humanity has grown. We have learned. We have built. And now we offer our strength to ensure this peace lasts. He looked directly at Drezek the Unbroken, greater than to those who would try to break it. We will not allow it. Silence. Then applause. Some clapped out of respect, some out of fear, but all understood. The war was over, but the galaxy had changed, and humanity was no longer just a footnote in history. They were now part of the future. The rise of the UNSC back on Earth. The United Nations Space Command, UNSC, worked non-stop. New ships were being built. New fighters were being tested. New soldiers were being trained. The Indomitable was only the beginning. Across hidden bases and orbiting stations, humans worked side by side with AI systems powered by alien tech. Their navy grew. Their defenses strengthened. They weren't preparing for conquest. They were preparing for protection, because they knew the truth. Peace is fragile, and someone must always stand ready to defend it. In orbit above Earth, a new ship was nearing completion. Bigger than the Indomitable. Faster. Stronger. Its name was already chosen. UN Sovereign and soon it would join the fleet along with dozens more, because humanity had made a promise. Not to start wars, but to finish them. The war had been about to end until humanity's battleship arrived. Now, peace was not just a dream. It was a promise. And for the first time in galactic history, that promise had someone to keep it. Humans. Not as conquerors, not as diplomats, but as protectors. A galaxy. Change Darethos had become more than just a planet. It was now a symbol, a place where enemies had once met to end a war, and where, in its final moments, a new power had risen to make sure peace would never be broken again. Across the galaxy, the message spread. Greater than humanity has arrived. Some species welcomed them, others feared them. A few still resisted, but none could deny the truth. The UNS Indomitable had changed everything. In orbit above Erithos, the ship floated silently like a guardian watching over a sleeping world. Inside its command center, Commander Elias Ward stood with his hands behind his back, staring out at the stars. Behind them, officers worked quietly. Reports came in from across the system. Peace talks continuing. Damage assessments being made. Wounded being treated. Ward didn't speak for a long time. Then he turned. Send a message, he said, to every known system. Aye, sir. Ward looked at the screen. Tell them this, the war is over. Peace has a new protector, and anyone who tries to take it away again will answer to us. The message was sent across the stars. To every species, every empire, every warlord, and somewhere in the darkness of space, a single line echoed through the coms. Greater than ***. This is humanity. We don't start wars, we finish them. ***. The rise of the UNSC back on Earth. The United Nations Space Command, UNSC, was already moving. The battle above Erithos had proven what they had built. Now, it was time to build more. At hidden bases and orbital stations, engineers worked non-stop. Factories churned out weapons, ships, armor. New recruits trained. Old soldiers returned. The Indomitable was only the beginning. More ships were coming, better ships, stronger ships. Soon, humanity would have a fleet that no one could ignore. In orbit above Earth, a massive vessel neared completion. Its hull was sleek, black, Covered in advanced armor plating. Its engines hummed with power, its weapons were silent, but ready. It was bigger than the indomitable. Faster. Stronger. Its name was chosen carefully. UNS. Sovereign. Commander Ward himself had picked it, because that was what humanity would be. Sovereign. Free. Unbreakable. And always watching. The Galactic Concord on Erithos. The leaders of the galaxy gathered once more, this time not to end a war, but to shape the future. Representatives from the Varelian Coalition, the Corvex Dominion, the Zenari, the Threxians, and dozens of other species sat together in the Grand Hall, some old enemies, some uneasy allies, all looking toward the same uncertain future. At the head of the table stood Admiral Talric Vale of the Varelians. Beside him, Chancellor Mordecai of the Zenari, and next to them, Kalen Dor and Commander Elias. Ward. Humanity. No longer outsiders. Now equals. Vale spoke first. The war is over, he said. But peace is fragile. We all know that. Murmurs of agreement. We cannot let it break again, he continued. That is why we propose something new. He looked at Ward. It is time for a new order. Ward stepped forward. The United Nations Space Command proposes the formation of a Galactic Concord, he said, a unified defense force, made up of all species, led by all species, including humans. Silence filled the room. Then voices rose, some excited, some afraid, some angry. A Corvex general stood. You expect us to trust you? After what you did? Ward met his gaze. I expect you to remember what happened, he said calmly. You tried to break the peace. We stopped you, not because we wanted war, but because we will not allow peace to be destroyed. The room grew. Chancellor Mordecai clicked softly, her many eyes glowing. What does this Concord do? She asked. Ward answered. It protects. It watches. It enforces the treaty. If any species breaks it, the Concord responds. She nodded slowly. And if we refuse? Ward didn't flinch. Then you are free to go. But no, this humanity will not stand aside again. If you choose war, we will be waiting. Another silence. Then, finally, Vale spoke. I vote yes. One by one, others followed. Yes. And then, even the Corvex general gave a slow nod. Yes. The vote passed. The Galactic Concord was born. The first test piece did not come easily, even with the Concord formed. There were still those who resisted, warlords in the outer. Systems refused to join. Pirates saw opportunity in chaos. And deep in the uncharted void, something watched. Something ancient. Something hungry. But humanity was ready. Within weeks, the Indomitable and its sister ship, the Sovereign, led the first joint mission of the Concord, their target. A pirate base hidden in the ruins of a dead star system. Dozens of alien ships joined them. Zenari carriers, Threxian frigates, even former Corvex vessels. Now, under Concord control. As the fleet moved into position, Ward stood on the bridge of the Indomitable. He looked at the screen. Then he gave the order. Begin the strike. Fighters launched, lasers fired, missiles roared through space, and within hours, the pirates were gone, their base burned, their ships wrecked, and the message was clear. Greater than peace has a new protector. A legacy forged in fireback on Earth. Children looked up at the sky and dreamed. They saw ships like the Indomitable and Sovereign and knew they could be part of something greater. Soldiers trained, scientists studied, engineers built. Because humanity had found its place, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as guardians. Of peace. Of freedom. Of justice. And when the stars called, they answered. Not with fear, but with strength. With courage, with fire. The final words. Years passed, the Galactic Concord grew stronger, peace held, wars faded, and humanity became more than just a species. They became legend across the stars. Their name was spoken with respect. Sometimes with fear. Always with awe, because when the galaxy needed help, when peace was threatened, when the dark came calling, they were there. Humans. Not gods, not monsters. Just people, but people with fire in their hearts. And steel in their hands. And when the enemy came, They fought. They won, and they made sure no one ever forgot, because in the darkest corners of space, where danger waits and shadows fall, there is one truth that remains, one warning whispered among the stars, one message heard across the void, greater than asterisk asterisk, this is humanity. We don't start wars, we finish them. Asterisk asterisk, let me know if you'd like an epilogue, side stories, or character bios for this